like I said, that goes back to some very deep-rooted beliefs. But even more than that, I think there are several aspects we need to keep in mind. One is, when we talk about labor force participation, we need to see it's very different on how urban and rural India behave on that. Secondly, even when we are talking about a growing economy, we also need to see what kind of growth is coming. So if let's say the percentage of agriculture is not sustaining and the female labor force participating in that does not have as much to do, the question is, so where do they go? And that then comes to the point when we, let's say, talk about manufacturing as a sector, on how many jobs are we creating which are amenable for that same labor force to participate in. Because this labor force becomes available, is keen on working, but do we have enough jobs? Because let's also accept that as many of us as are driving manufacturing as a sector are also talking increasingly about automation, for instance. So are we raising as many labor-intensive jobs that could employ the kind of women that are getting freed up from another sector of the economy, which may not be growing at the same percentage as something else? So I think that's one thing that I would really want to emphasize is a possible reason why we are where we are. I think the other is also in terms of the skill sets. So a lot of times when there are vocational courses that are offered, what kind of courses do women sign up for? And let's say in kind of sectors that we are talking about, do we have enough of those kind of courses that would make them employable in the kind of jobs that we feel as we develop, as we progress, we should be able to offer to women? So the question is about also building the skill set. So one is how many jobs, second is the ability of these women to be able to participate in that kind of a labor force. The other would also be that when they do participate, both as a society and an expectation from them, as well as their desire, which again has a deep-rooted conditioning, do we have enough support structures that can relieve them from what we think, all of us, at least I do, that I am responsible for and I need to take care. So a lot of women would opt for, let's say, part-time working or would want some flexibility on their working. And that, again, is something which, as we grow as an economy, the question is, do we have enough of that available? And of course, I have moved from the low-skilled, more of a rural kind of labor force with women to a more urban, educated, higher educated workforce. And that is something that is important for all of us to consider, because I don't think the roles are expected to change as much if I looked at a rural woman versus an urban woman, and the expectations, or like I said, a deep-rooted conditioning that is expected from the women. So is that the support structure that is there? The answer is no. That is definitely not there. There is mandates by the government. Organizations worth their metal do take care of those. But yes, it is not as pervasive, and neither is it as available for everybody to take advantage of. Another thing, and I'm sorry, but I can keep going on, but maybe I'll pause after this. But I think it's also to do with policies and what we make available as options to encourage industries to have more women in the labor force. And it goes back to a topic very close to my heart, the business case for diversity. And I think that's something which hasn't been sold enough. So the work has started. I would say the last decade and a half, or even a little more than that, there is more awareness, but it is yet to translate into something which can change what actually has been with us for centuries. And I would think I'll pause at that, Aanand, maybe give others a chance to say a little more. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavana. These are very, very important points. We should revisit them later as well. Gayathri, your views?
Thank you, Aanand, and thank you so much for inviting me to this forum today with all these elite speakers. And I think some great points have already been made. I would probably just move back to the grassroots, point again in terms of where we all come from and the way we are brought up and that conditioning that even Bhavana was talking about. And I think it makes me think about the theme for this year's Women's Day also, which is break the bias. And I think I'd like to start by saying that bias exists. That's the first thing we all need to acknowledge. In many quarters, it's conscious, in many quarters, it's unconscious. But it definitely exists. There is a lot of conditioning in the way that girls are brought up, in the way that we are, usually conditioned to think about taking up streams like arts or other streams which are easier compared to science and technology and engineering. And that itself, limits to me the kind of participation that there will be in sectors like manufacturing. And I think that's where also I find that there is definitely a need to start by addressing societal and behavioral change. And that will not happen overnight, and it cannot be only the government's responsibility either. So there is a cohesive effort that is needed, and like others were saying before me, I think small steps are being taken, and hopefully there will be greater leaps in the future. But I do believe that there is a lot of hope, for the simple reason that I think there is a lot of awareness about the fact that these things have to be addressed from the grassroots level itself. And this bias itself is not limited to rural or urban. It exists everywhere, which is why I see I was just watching a stand-up comedy the other day, and they're still, making jokes about how relatives commiserate with people who've had a girl child. And that's an urban audience who's laughing at it because they identify with it. It still happens, and it happens in rural and urban both. So that is the level of bias and conditioning that we are all living with. And I think that as it changes slowly, there's also the other spectrum. So when women are made to make a, you have to make a choice at times and prioritize your family or childcare. It's usually been the woman who makes the sacrifice, but I think even that is slowly changing. It's a very small percentage where I am seeing men take the choice to stay home and take care of the children while the woman continues with her career. But I think that shift is also happening. So there are little pockets of change. There are also efforts happening from the government. I was in a government school for girls yesterday as part of one of the STEM initiatives that Rolls-Royce supports. And it gave me so much pride to look at the girls in that school who were talking about, becoming engineers, doctors. That school had brought, I think 8 students last year who cleared NEET. They had 4 students who cleared JEE. And I felt fantastic about the fact that that entire generation, the next generation, was inspired to do more on the same lines. And I think that gives me a lot of hope. And I hope that the government will also continue to make efforts. Companies like ours will continue to support those efforts to make changes at the education level also, to support those children, and financial also for many of those children. But I think the crux of it will always be about behavioral change. How can we bring about that behavioral change slowly? Because I think a strong element that helped those girls to come forward was the fact that there was a lot of parental counseling we did to help parents understand that it's okay for girls to opt for science careers. And I could see a bunch of proud parents sitting there as their daughters got scholarships to pursue STEM studies. And I think that's, for me, it was a moment of fantastic hope for the future. And I think that's the way forward for the manufacturing sector. And undoubtedly there are other issues, and no doubt that I myself have spoken to so many women engineers within Rolls-Royce who've talked about how when they started out, they were the only woman engineer on the shop floor. and all the challenges that went with it. But I think as things evolve, industry will evolve as well. You know, when you get your first woman employee, you will suddenly think about, do I need a separate washroom for the women? Do I need to think of, and that it's as basic as that in many places. And I think those changes will happen, they will evolve. Definitely there will be a role for industry to play, but also for the government to play. And I hope that we'll move from taking baby steps to taking really big leaps.
Thank you, Gayathri, for illuminating it so well. Kavya, your views?
Thank you, Aanand. I think Ameeta, Bhavana, and Gayathri have all thrown a lot of light into the issues and why women labor force is still low in our country. I concur with all of these points. Maybe I will focus a little more onto why it is so low, starkingly low, especially in the manufacturing sector, since a lot of the generic points have already been covered. I think one of the things that I think is that generally the mindset that our country has towards manufacturing is that it still involves a lot of hard manual labor, and the environment is not very conducive for women. But over the last 10 to 20 years, with automation coming in, the skill sets that are needed in this segment are entirely different. They're all more like dexterity, motor skills, precision, and things like that. And women are as competent and as men are with these skill sets, right? And with my own personal experience, I did my engineering probably 12, 13 years ago, and we were about two students in a class of 60. This was the same case in the previous generation as well during my father's time. And right now, when I speak to the college that I studied in, not much has changed. It's improved by a small percentage, but we're not seeing much of a difference. And I mean, I don't see why there would be a difference if manufacturing sector doesn't portray itself to be a lucrative option for young girls, right? And how this could probably kick off is that companies need to realize the advantages of inclusion of women. Maybe we could pick up some results generated by industries that have more diverse groups, like probably IT or healthcare, where women are more inclusive, and see the results that they've generated from it in terms of productivity, creativity, increase in efficiency, and so on. They have seen large differences, and if we could pick up from those results, I think that will be a large change maker for companies to take a call to encourage hiring more women, right? And even in terms of labor force from our tier 2, tier 3 cities, I think Amit Bhavna was mentioning that we don't really have vocational programs to develop skill sets for women. So we need to come up with vocational programs to develop the skill sets that are relevant for manufacturing sector. That I'm sure would bring some amount of change. And like Gayathri was mentioning, it is until we get this critical number of women in any organization, we need to give that extra push and encouragement, and maybe incentivizing, maybe finding some way of incentivizing women to join the sector. And once we have this critical number or percentage, everything around it will fall in place, like facilities, amenities, your health and safety policies that you have, the measures that you have. So all of this will automatically come in place once we reach that critical percentage of women. That's what I feel.
Thank you, Kavya. Dr. Komal?
Thank you, Anand, for giving this opportunity to share our views on why so less women in manufacturing. Okay, this is a very nice topic actually, because I have also gone through a lot of things, and I have observed that the major miss with everything, all the points almost are covered by all my young ladies here, and but still the cultural norms, which I feel is the primary thing, is there here, because women are mainly basically busy with their primary activity of the domestic task, and they have to be juggling between the both activities when they go for any job, or they go for any any opportunity outside. They look for the comfort zone because they wanted to look at want to balance everything, home and the office job. So that is one of the things. Second, I can say, like Kavya also mentioned, there is a misconception on the job on in manufacturing, because most of the time we think that it is okay, it is a labor work and lot of intense activity has to be done, or most of the time it is 24/7 also. So women not try to prefer such type of job. They go for either like Bhavana also mentioned, if it is a short period job or part-time job, they try to prefer those type of activities. Second thing, I feel that that misconception has to be first, that awareness has to be come into the woman and the all young, in starting from the young age itself, from the education point of view. If we start educating with them, like how manufacturing goes and how automation technology is also coming with a variety of automation, that where ladies can also participate and actually go for such type of jobs also in future. uh, Second thing, the inclusion, like in organization also, diversity and inclusion, that initiative I think will play a major role in all the organization if they start this, because this is going to change a lot of change. Like Hexagon also has having this initiative of diversity and inclusion. Hexagon are also going for like initiatives, like they are a star member of HIC, which is a non-profit organization and which is bringing all IT and ITS organizations together under the one umbrella, where young girls can be trained, and they are being giving training for in various areas. All education support has been provided. Similarly, leadership, we can say, like we can have the career guidance given to the woman, as well as the how they can go for a leadership programs. Like they can, every woman I think should have a mentor, so that they will guide, because that guidance I think somewhere is lacking, and due to that women are not progressing in their career also. So that is the thing which I would like to add here, why it is low, because all these things are making a lot of impact.
Thanks, Dr. Komal. Nidhi?
Yeah, so sure. Thanks, Anand. I think a lot has been covered. So let me also not talk about the education problem and all that. But that, again, I would like to highlight, because coming from the rural background, I would say that makes a lot of difference when, you choose an industry. If I give an example of a child choosing a dream or a future for him or herself, they have to look around, why a particular child want to become a doctor or an engineer or a IS officer, etc. So they look around, they see people around, and then they choose that, yeah, there is certain authority and they want to become like a doctor or an engineer. So if there is a question about manufacturing, why women are so less, how many role models do we have in manufacturing right now? Who are those minimum percentage of number of the women who are actually shining on the stage? To look upon them, a child has to pick up that, yeah, I also want to become like that. I think we need a lot of such role models that will change this scenario. And of course, these norms, the social norms still exist, because of the shop floor people have that notion in their mind that it's all men intensive job, there are all men around, the culture is not very good, and the facilities are not appropriate. However, it is changed completely. A lot of factories have changed, it's all automated. Most of the things are, we are talking about AI and ML mobilities and things like that. So now factories are not the way we have thought about these factories 10 years, 20 years back. So things have changed, and I think that perception has to be changed. These are some of the major areas why this particular gap is still existing in the society.
Thank you so much, Nidhi, and thank you so much to all the panelists for for sharing their perspective on the theme and throwing light on so many points. Now, one of the attendees, Ms. Mamta Jain, she's very active in this area. She's a leading figure in women in diversity at workplace, and she has posted several points to all the panelists. So, to ask the next question, in fact, her one of her questions is also something that I wanted to ask you. That's why I'm mentioning this. But before that, she has mentioned one thing that I'd like to respond to very quickly, is that she asks whether at the time of presenting these statistics, did I take into account the data from the informal sector? For instance, she says that textile and apparel, for instance, is predominantly informal and dominated by women. So have these data numbers taken into account? So to that, my response is that these are ILO estimates, which the World Bank publishes. And International Labour Organization also covers the informal sector in its various reports. So I've not dug so deep into methodology, whether they take this into account, but I do know that ILO has data from the informal sectors as well. And my my instinct is that even when we take into account numbers from the informal sectors, some sectors are so low, so severely low, that they even out they cancel out these high numbers from the healthcare sector or the apparel sector. For example, the manufacturing sector, it is so abysmally low that it cancels out the high rates of employment in other sectors which are more dominated by numbers of women. So now coming to the second question, which Mamta has also asked, in your experience, dear panelists, uh, is the environment in the manufacturing sector conducive and welcoming and friendly to the female labor force? And I'm talking about both the shop floor as well as the environment for the service functions also that are associated with the sector. But it will be of big help if you could include the shop floor, the warehouses, and places which are traditionally considered, as Nidhi pointed out, which were not designed keeping women in mind. So what is the environment in the manufacturing sector, and is it conducive to women? I'll start with Ameeta, please.
Yeah, thank you, Anand. Well, answering to that question, when we talk of the education and when we talk of sensitizing, it is not only that the women have to be sensitized. It is men who have to be sensitized, that they have to, customize themselves, that women are working with them. So it's not that we have to, educate women every time ki nahi aap jao jaake padho. It is for the boys and men to understand, or be it is at a school, college, or in an organization, that yes, there will be women, there will be females within the organization, whether it is a shop floor operating a CNC machine, or whether she is at the desk job doing some kind of an office work, that there will be women over there, there will be females over there. You have to understand that there are certain limits that you have to follow with them, a certain decorum that you have to maintain for them. So that sensitization has to be done for men rather than for the women. So that is my first take. It is conducive or not, it depends entirely on the organizational structure, how the structure has been built up, what is the acumen of the people coming over there, or what kind of the hierarchy is over there. I personally believe whenever a hiring is done, companies should make it a policy that there's some percentage, as there has been in the parliament, 33%, they should make a point that some percentage of women should be there in the organization, so there is a neutral structure, the neutral environment, so everyone is comfortable. Will all the men around in the organizations, I would say definitely it creates a certain uneasiness. And I would say I joined one of the manufacturing units in 1997, and we were only two females in the designing department. So definitely when we used to go to the printing sector, did create an uncomfortable zone. But however, whoever your upline are, whoever our people are there in the management, the onus is absolutely on their shoulders, that they create a certain conducive environment. A feeling of security and safety should always be there. Maybe on a lower level, we cannot have posh committees and workshops pertaining to all these compliances. But yes, certainly at a lower level also, that environment can be created. And yes, sensitization has to be done from the grassroots level, rather than people when they join the college, school, or it has to start from the home itself. We don't need to say कि लड़कियों को पढ़ाना है. We should start with the notion कि लड़कों को पढ़ाना है, कि लड़कियां भी साथ में काम करेंगे, and you need to create a certain respect in your mind and in your heart for them. So that is my take on that.
Thank you so much, Ameeta. Bhavana?
I think to the question on how conducive the environment in a manufacturing setup is, it's a mixed bag. I mean, I wouldn't just single out manufacturing, and I wouldn't single out within manufacturing the plant versus the front end offices versus the support functions. I think a big part of what makes it conducive, besides what Ameeta made as some great points, is the fact that the more you are over there, the more numbers that are there, the more comfortable you feel. And I think Nidhi made a point earlier that, do we have enough role models? I would say it's not even about role models. It is about how many do you have out there. And the thing is that when people are starting, so today we have organizations in different stages. There are organizations who made a jump from a support function perspective. There are organizations who have made jump from a factory perspective. There are organizations which across the board have been able to make a difference by bringing in more women. And of course, it's kind of a virtuous circle. The more you bring in, the more others think it is a comfortable and conducive, as the word you use, to be over there. The point is there's still a first step to be made. And that first step obviously takes a lot of strength and courage to be, in some cases, the odd one out. And in some cases, also accommodating and understanding of the fact that the other gender hasn't been used to seeing a different gender around. So, yes, education, skill development, all of that is important. But if we have the conviction that we want to make this difference, and I'm not saying you need to have the conviction when you're a CEO or like you're running $1 million organization, you need to have the conviction, to the point made earlier, about starting at the beginning, about aspiring to be there, about how you get conditions saying you can be out there, you can try out things that may not have been tried out in the past, because you know what? It's exciting out there. There's a point to prove, and you can make a difference. That is the biggest thing. That is what diversity is about. You can make a difference. So the more you take that conviction and you come into it, the more you create this virtuous circle. To me, like I said, the organizations are in different parts on this journey. I mean, different legs of this journey. And it will take some time. It is coming through the decades, it is coming through the centuries. It will take some time. But believe me, there are enough organizations who are conscious and who are wanting to make a difference. And that is where the point comes in around inclusion. So there is the need of not just getting in women, but getting them to be comfortable. And there are ways to do it, from basic facilities, infrastructures, to policies, all of that, and to the mindset or the culture that gets driven, where men don't find it strange that there is a woman there, or there are none of these, as we say, unconscious biases. The more we talk, the more we share, the more awareness spreads. And I think it is for those who are already there to encourage that conducive environment, to be there, to share their journeys, so that others know that it is doable and it is a very exciting, though challenging journey ahead. So to me, let's not leave the onus only to the men. It is as much with the women as with the men. It is not straightforward, but it can be done. And the environment can be made conducive when we start. Now, to the point on infrastructure, when you start with the first woman in an all-male office, how easy is it for you to say, you know what, there's a washroom that needs to be exclusively for women? Believe me, irrespective of which level you are at, it takes you twice, you think twice before you actually put that out. And then also it takes a tremendous amount of courage to make it happen, because that's fundamental. And the first reaction you have is, oh my God, how did they even think this was possible. But that's the way the journey needs to be made, and it needs to come with conviction. The environment is something we ourselves create, as well as the male members of the organizations.
Absolutely. Great points there. Gayatri?
I agree. I think fantastic points already raised. I just feel that also, irrespective of sectors, women, when they come into the workplace, we want definitely that there should be respect and there should be neutrality. You want a neutral workplace where you're not judged for being a woman or otherwise. You want that your work is respected for the quality of what you're delivering. And I think that is something which definitely drives a lot of women. And I do believe that women are always up for a challenge. But also at the same time, I think, when you speak about the manufacturing sector, as speakers before me said, I mean, there has always been that sense that this is not the most conducive place to go in and, work in. And you could always opt for an easier option, become a teacher or whatever, or any other, a profession which is seen as easier. But the truth is that, as Bhavana also was saying, every organization is on a different evolution cycle. And some have evolved a lot more to be able to bring in women, give them the kind of facilities that are needed, who are conscious of the fact. And these could be organizations which have already been through that learning curve and have therefore been able to facilitate the participation of more women into their workforce, and are able to provide those kind of facilities, make it easier for women to come into the workplace, make the timing suitable for them to contribute to that process. But let's also face one more thing. I think across industries, people are realizing the fact that the diversity of thought process that comes in when you bring in women into the workplace is definitely contributing to greater productivity, greater innovation, and a lot more, powerful contributions are happening because of the inclusion of women into the workplace. And I think, therefore, it's the same for manufacturing. I think the vision of Make in India will probably truly come alive when there are a lot more women that will come into the workplace in terms of manufacturing.
Absolutely. Kavya, your views?
Yeah, a lot of good points have already been brought in. I'll just speak from my own personal experience. In terms of facility, we will keep that aside. I mean, like we have discussed in the previous round of questions, facility and amenities cannot be made as at par as what it is for men, unless there is a certain number of women. And even in terms of policies and how smooth the policies are and how conducive it is, until we hit that stage where there are a good number of women, this is not intentional, but the level of empathy will not be as much. It is not it's not a bias, but it's just something that subconsciously happens as your exposure increases, right? So that will eventually happen if we find a way to somehow have more women. And even having women in manufacturing sector, it may not be very easy to bring in women just in the core competence at once. So in manufacturing sectors, if we are very conscious that in roles where women can play a very good role, like say HR, or like Gayathri is heading communications, departments like these are as important, if not more, no, if not more, as the core segment. So if the manufacturing sector says that overall I will set aside this percentage of vacancy for women, that will automatically make the environment more conducive. Okay, so that being said, with respect to how we have been treated, with my personal experience, I would like to say that things have been looking up over the years, and people have been more than encouraging, and in most cases they've been very encouraging about the fact that we are one of the few who have joined in this industry. And I've not had in many situations where they've looked at us differently. Of course, there will be an initial discomfort because they're not used to working with women. But as they get to know you, I think we have always been treated very respectfully and kind, and we have been given, our we've been appreciated for the level of commitment that we have, and the technology that we bring in and all of that. So I really don't have complaints in that. We just have to take in the challenge of, somebody has to take in the challenge of being the first or second one to join in the company and go through a little bit of discomfort and not look at it as a big challenge. You just have to look at it as, like any person in any industry would have his or her own set of challenges. This is a set of challenges that you face. If that is a perspective that you have once you get in, I think I've not really had that many complaints over the last decade.
Great to know that, Kavya. Thank you so much, Nidhi.
Yeah, so good that, Kavya didn't face a lot of challenges. But for me, the experience has not been really same. Because for me, my workplace is beyond my own employer. I go to the customer places and their shop floor becomes my workplace. Correct. So, and these people, of course, I visit from OEMs to tier 1 to tier 2 suppliers, and sometimes even very, very small shop floors. And these shop floors might be having just 20, 50 labor class people, and most of these people are men. There is no woman. And as Kavya also highlighted, and I think
We lost
Gayathri
you.
also said that, because when there is no woman in the setup, then there is no infrastructure in place. So I face a lot of issues. Maybe I will give one example. Once I was for a sales call. It was my quarter end, and I was visiting this customer. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. And about 1 o'clock, I inquired if there is a washroom. There was none. And I was in the outskirts. Even if I come out, there is nothing in the surrounding areas as well. And if I'm supposed to close the order, I am not supposed to come out, leave that place without an order. So another thing which is coming or going into my mind is that, if I leave the place, uh, what will my boss think about my commitment? Correct. So that is another pressure that I'm taking. uh, so uh, so such kind of situations are still existing. I think people have to be aware when they are getting or setting up any businesses. They have to think about beyond their own employees which are there, because people also must be visiting with a lot of diversion in the workforce, and the people visiting for businesses. There might be a woman sales force as well who will be visiting them. So yeah, that's my personal experience. I think a lot has to do. It's a skew which exists in the society and in the corporate, which has to look at. Yeah.
Thank you, Nidhi. Dr. Komal.
Yes, Anand. I would like to just give some recent developments in the manufacturing where the women are being hired. Like Tata Steel has started the initiative where the women at mines program, and they have hired around 38 female for in their manufacturing unit at the Jharkhand. So these are such initiative like Hindustan Coca-Cola also. They are going to set up a new refinery, a factory at the West Bengal, and there also they have committed to for 60% women in the manufacturing. So I think such type of initiatives, I think, is going to make the more, like as you said, the safety and everything will be, I think, will be taken. So such initiative has to be more in the future so that more women can be seen in the manufacturing area.
Thank you so much, Dr. Komal. And now my last question before we open this to the audience, and I'll start with Bhavana, as she has to attend an appointment and she'll have to leave. Bhavana, so what are the top points? And a lot of this has been covered, but in terms of enumerating and specifying it and adding your valued perspective of what are the things to be done to increase the participation of women in manufacturing particularly.
Yeah, I think we've spoken a ton of things, right from the hard part, which is around the infrastructure, to the softer part. I think I kept using the term conviction when I last spoke. A lot of this has to do with the conviction of people who can make a difference. And that is where the journey needs to begin. We need to be convinced at each and every level that there is value in bringing women into the workforce and bringing more and more of them. If we are convinced that the business case of diversity holds true, then we start bringing in the women. The more women we bring in, the virtuous circle starts. But it's not just about bringing them in, it is also about keeping them and making sure they can deliver to their best. And that is where the second part around inclusion comes in. We talked a lot about sensitizing the men, and this is not like somebody needs to bear the burden of the cross on their shoulders. It is about saying that, yes, this is different. You have not experienced it, whether you are a man or a woman, and we are here to make you aware that this is doable. And by the way, this will improve all of us and what we can add as value. And that sensitization, I think, is a big part that organizations who have not really seen the benefit of diversity, or in some cases have even taken U-turns, have actually experienced. So what happens is you bring in the women, and then the women are most uncomfortable because of all the reasons we talked on, conduciveness of environment. Some of them can make it happen, others give up or are not motivated enough to deliver. And like Nidhi gave a very good example. Yeah, I mean, I can be great in my organization, but what happens when I step out? That sensitization needs to be across the board. It cannot be in pockets. And what is happening today is there's a lot of pocket kind of working that is happening. There are silos within which improvements are happening. So what happens? Women are great there, and then they leave that, and suddenly it's like, okay, the reality is pretty harsh outside. There needs to be at a policy level an initiative to drive a much more inclusive environment and behavior. I mean, POSH should not really be needed, because it is as much a reflection of the society as anything else. And the reason we need it is because there are certain issues in the way society looks at it. And that is where we need to work. And those are really fundamental things. So big corporations take steps, much appreciated. But industry bodies and the government needs to come in to get this sensitization right at the grassroots level moving, rather than, okay, let's do this today, let's take another initiative. By the way, I have the buzzword called diversity on my strategy, and you know what, we'll make a difference. It doesn't happen that way. It needs to be a concerted, all-rounded effort. That would be my view, Anand.
Thank you so much, Bhavana. This is so important. Thank you for your valued time that you shared with us.
Thank you so much. I will take your leave. Really appreciate talking to all of you, and stay in touch. Yes, Ameeta.
Yeah, I just wanted to put it across. When we say and when we show some live examples and role models, I think we should showcase examples like Bhavana ma'am, so that this is definitely true, ma'am, because we all lead by examples. Somewhere or this we are either mentoring or maybe just giving an example to someone, so that someone can follow us. So when we go out and give examples in banking, why don't we give out examples in the manufacturing sector for the ma'am, so that then the girls or anyone in the industry can be inspired to look at what at a certain level you can be there in a span of, let's say, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is. So these live examples should start at the grassroots level, right from the vocational colleges or from the vocational trainings whenever they are giving. So there's a real life example that people would really like to follow. That is my point and my takeaway from this forum.
Great. Thank you, Ameeta. What a lovely end to my participation. Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure, ma'am.
I'm already inspired. All right. Thank you. I will log on.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhavana. Thank you. So, Ameeta, would you want to take this up, add your views, since we're starting this question? I'll add an emphasis and underline, because this is important. I don't consider it complete without finalists answering this question. Why is it so severe in India? This is something that has been bugging me. Is that, a lot of problems we share with our neighboring countries. Whether it is cultural stereotyping and insecure spaces for women, as grim and grave these issues are, they affect us more. So what else is the thing that we are not able to find?
See, largely one reason could be also because we are a very, very highly populated country. So when we compare with other countries, again, the population ratio also comes into the factor. Of course, we are talking about the demographics, and then we are talking about the cultural restraints over here. Moment, whenever we think ki, yes, we have to hire a certain number of females into the system, then automatically that costing part also start in the into the minds of the people who are who are into the hiring team. Yes, there will be certain cost to it. Then the maternity leaves comes into the picture, that 90 days she'll be paid, and then we have a certain costing coming with it. So it's small thing. Washroom, and that these are again very basic things, but yes, that she will be taking leaves on the PTMs, that yes, she'll be going for whenever her child is sick. So all these things come into play whenever there's a hiring from for a female employee. So definitely we need to come across such policies, that or maybe such kind of flexible policies, I would say, that they are allowed to work in a hybrid mode. That is one part. But why we are lacking or going so much beyond when in comparison to the other countries? But again, I personally, I feel yes, population is one another factor. Two, women are obviously opting out for better options other than the agriculture. Oh, sorry, other than the manufacturing part, which is the definitely labor force is going down over there. Could be another reason, could be other than the the education, which is taking them little beyond what they were. So earlier, manufacturing in the locals, in the agriculture sector, was only domain which they were looking at. Now there are other avenues open to them, and they are definitely looking up to them.
Thanks, Ameeta. Gayatri?
I think definitely agree with everything said so far, but also I just think that efforts from government, efforts from industry and businesses, and awareness and communication at a social level will all play a role in making things better, and really providing an impetus to bringing women into the workforce. But also I think women themselves, and it just takes me back to what Nidhi was giving as an example of her own personal experience. I think women in India especially are conditioned to deliver everything without asking for anything. And one of the leadership trainings we were hosting, one of the points I picked up was that women, we never ask. We already do all the maths, we do all the calculations, we do all the permutation combinations of, oh, if I ask, this will happen. If I tell my manager, oh, this is not this is not what if I ask him, what will he think? Oh my god, if I tell him, oh my god, I'm not getting a washroom and it's an issue for me. I mean, you already answer all those questions, and that is what I believe are self-limiting beliefs is what it is. And I think a lot of us as women are limited by our own thought process, because we just think we already answer all the questions, and we think, no, I need to do 500% more than everybody around me, and I need to do it within what I have, and I should not ask for anything else. So I think we need to get up and ask, and ask questions and ask for things which we need to make us deliver better. Because end of the day, if Nidhi, if you got that one additional facility, and if the workplaces that you were visiting were a little bit more sensitive to you, I think you would probably be doing so much more, as an employee. So we don't think like that at times. And I think that's also a factor. I just wish that more of us would just, build that courage to go out and ask.
Maybe Nidhi would have got
Wow.
more orders in
Wow.
that quarter.
Wow. Absolutely.
Don't know
Gayatri.
about the others, but yeah, got that one for sure.
These are some really powerful words. Thank you for that, Gayatri. You hammered the nail on its head. Self-limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And very good
Yeah.
point Gayatri has
Yeah.
actually come up. And that's why I think overall leadership development program for a woman has to be organized by every institute, because this is a very, very good point what Gayatri has taken up, because we are always keeping ourselves, we come up with our own questions and answers within ourselves. So we don't go and ask others. So we think that either it will be excuses for them. We don't
So,
want to give any excuse.
Gayatri, that encourages me to add one point to this, and I want your views very quickly before I move to other panelists. See, and you've seen a multicultural setup. You worked with organizations, as have others, like PepsiCo, like Rolls-Royce, your current organization with Samsung, and these are multinational organizations, and you would have a comparative picture of the environments available to women in different countries, and especially in the major economies. What are the main differences that you see in the environment available in India vis-a-vis other developed economies?
I think all of these countries have also been through that journey of woman being the homemaker, and having to deal with that journey of evolving into the woman in the workforce and being accepted as part of the workforce. And I think the difference is just that little bit in terms of that mindset, is kind of, we're probably just still on that growth phase versus maybe the other nations who have just already been through that learning curve. But yeah, I mean, we are India, we adapt very quickly and we learn very quickly. We adopted technology faster than anybody else in the world. So I do believe that the kind of pace in which this change will also happen will surely be fast and driven by the youngsters for sure. But I think the difference is also that when you look at some of the other countries, there, I think at the workplace that they are also dealing with these issues of gender equality. It's not that they are not. And I think that's why these questions arise. That's why you still have a Women's Day. Otherwise, why do you need a Women's Day? So I think that they across nations, workplace wise, definitely the challenges may be slightly different, but it's not that there aren't. And I think we're moving towards not just gender, male versus women. We're moving towards LGBTQ issues at the workplace. We're moving towards cultural diversity, ethnicity, and so many others. So I think it just, the nature of the issues kind of varies between countries, but I think everywhere we are dealing with issues.
Right. Thank you for that optimistic and a very insightful note, Gayathri. Kavya, your views?
Yeah, I also almost all of the points that they mentioned, I'm in line with what they're saying. The only thing is, I think, yeah, in India, we are still in the path of progressing towards, the husband and the wife taking equal responsibility of running a family. It is definitely changing. We are not as bad as we were maybe 5-10 years ago, but it still is the case that a woman has to take a break when uh, during her maternity and post that for a couple of months, and we don't have policies that will assure her of a job. And even if policies are there, there is still a kind of cautious behavior of the employer towards hiring women of this age, thinking that there would be a break in the career, and they wouldn't be able to fulfill their responsibilities for the stipulated period of time. So that bias is still there. That is one reason I'm able. It's there everywhere around the world, but in India, I think we are heading there. We have not headed there yet, like Gayatri rightly pointed out. The second thing, I think, in tier 2 or tier 3 cities, I think from my own personal experience in factories like ours, and similar factories where we are trying to hire workforce, is that they still feel that coming to work and staying over for a little longer hours is not very safe for women, and that mindset cannot change. The environment has to change for that mindset to change. So, and one more point that I'm thinking about is that there still seems to be a difference in pay structure for equal kind of responsibilities. There is a parity in the pay structure between men and women. So when it comes to weighing between options of handling household responsibilities and working, I think men end up earning more for the given set of responsibilities even now, which encourages them to step out more than women can. That also is changing. It is not something that the gap is not as high as it used to be, but I don't think we are anywhere close to the equality levels that should be there. So if that changes, I think things will change both ways. Men and women will have equal roles at home as well as taking up opportunities and responsibilities outside. So yeah, these are a couple
Thanks,
of
Kavya. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Dr. Komal?
I think Ameeta, Kavya, and Gayathri, all three have covered all the points. Like Kavya just mentioned that pay scale, that is also, I think, women are very easy to compromise with that, because of all these questions coming in mind, they again think, okay, I can go with a lesser pay also. And that is also one of the things we are lagging behind, actually, women are. So coming to the manufacturing point, I feel that we can go for a more awareness, and what type of like job type of manufacturings are there. That type of education can be improved for the women so that they can get more into the manufacturing areas.
Thank you, Dr. Komal. Nidhi?
Yeah. So, Aanand, I feel apart from the culture, we have been talking about, I think laws, government policies, and programs are also something which plays very, very important role. You were highlighting why, India sharing the similar culture with Bangladesh or the neighboring countries, but still our rate is very low. I'm not sure, but I feel these policies also play a very vital role. If I just pick up an example of Bangladesh, I feel number one, they have a woman leader, Sheikh Hasina. So when a leader is a woman, she understands the importance of women in the whole structure. Okay, that is number one. Number two, then because she's very sensitized about the whole problem, she is trying to include more women power in all the aspects, not only manufacturing but the other areas also. Number three, I feel they have taken a lot of proactive approach. They have run a lot of women focused development programs also. If we talk about the 1971 liberation war crisis, they have really taken conscious efforts in bringing a change in terms of the sex ratio, literacy rate, wage equality. And I think to bring such kind of changes, government leaders, the political ones, and the regional leaders, uh, or maybe the actors who are very, very, very influential, all these people have to come to the consensus and then define the policies. So I think those angles also we have to include and look at, so that we can actually bring the change and we can improve on the ratio that we have right now.
Chalo, bye.
Thanks, Nidhi. Now we have reached the end of the discussion. I'll request each panelist to take up one point that has been shared by the attendees and respond to that, starting with Ameeta. Before that, Ameeta, while you pick up your point to address from what has been posted by the attendees, I'd uh, quickly address one point posted by Shishir. Now he says that why do we need to create conducive environment if women want to enter manufacturing? So every sector comes with certain ones. So why manufacturing? Why are we insistent on women working in manufacturing so much? My perspective, from an editor's point of view, from somebody who's introspected and reflected on this question for long, having been a part of the industry for the last at least a decade. And it's not mansplaining, it's just somebody who's dealt with numbers and data. Is that women need to be a part of the manufacturing, because without manufacturing sector, no sector exists. Whether it is the tea gardens that Sishir gives the example of, or the BD factories, or the apparel, if you don't have the machines, you don't have the technology, you cannot sell anything on top of that. So you need to have the core manufacturing sector in place first, on the top of which you can build services. And it is important for the 50% of working population to be a part of this, a good part of that to be a part of this. That is one point. And the second point is that as women, more and more women become part of the global value chain, or the value chain per se, and they go up the value chain, it's a reflection of the health of an economy. A lot of economic indicators and standards of living indicators change when women become a part of the higher value chain. that is also important in that aspect. Now I'll start with Ameeta, and please do let us know your views on.
Yeah. Thank you, Anand. I'll just stick back to Shishir's question only. Why do we need to create conducive environment if women wants to enter manufacturing? So see, women are no more restricted to the BD garden or the tea gardens or the BD factories. They have come out. They are exploring themselves. They have moved forward, and that is where we need to create more conducive environment. We have already discussed that even males were not accustomed to having the other gender around them, so even they need to be sensitized, they need to be told certain rules and their levels or their lines. So that is one need. Of course, your question has the answer also within itself, because and the last it says ki, I'll just read it out from here. Women are the drive, are the force to drive any sector. They just need to come out with all the courage. You're absolutely right, Shishir. We are the courageous lot. We are the fearless lot. It's just that such kind of refresher days comes in where we just not only inspire ourselves, but we inspire and lead an example for other women also. So we all have to be a role model for others as well. One corrective action that I really want to point out, it has to start from the grassroots. It doesn't have to be the onus, doesn't have to be on the policies, government policies, or on the industry. It has to be on individual level as well. So wherever we have this situation, or we have this privilege of hand holding another female, giving a guidance to another female, we must all come out of our comfort zone, give that level of confidence to the other female, and create that equally friendly atmosphere for the other female also, so that she also has that inspiration, and this chain circle can actually start and give a kick boost to whatever we are talking today. Hope that
Thanks,
answers your
Ameeta.
that answers your question, Shishir.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amita. Gayathri, your views? Any question that you've chosen
I
for
think
yourself?
I'm going to pick up some comments that Mamta has put on the chat about how we have very low rate of women in the workforce, and she's posted some comments about how women are choosing peace over financial independence, and a lot of urban women are also choosing to be trophy wives rather than joining the workforce. Now, I just think, first of all, women need to stop running down women. We have to believe in the fact that we want that women are equally empowered and ready to really do well and make the world look at us. And I think I don't think it is that we choose peace over financial independence. Some people may have the option of choosing not to work, and that may be their mindset. But if we look at a large number of women who are joining the workforce, either it's because they do want they need to be financially independent, or it is because they love what they do. I mean, it's perfect. Why is it okay for a man to have career ambitions and not okay for a woman to have career ambitions? I love my job. I love going to work every day, and I love making a difference to the brands that I work with. And why should that not be reason enough to be part of the workforce? It is not about choosing peace or financial. I don't think they are mutually exclusive, and they should not be. So I think, Mamta, we need to inspire each other all the time. And like I said, I was inspired by the school kids of class 11 and 12 in a government school, who were in turn also inspired by the previous batch who had cleared NEET and JEE. And just that much of inspiration is enough. So I think we all need to just make sure that we are inspiring each other and making it possible for more women to join the workforce and to really encourage each other to do more. So I think I'd like to just add that one comment there. But thank you
Impactful
for the
words.
comments, Mamta. Thank you.
Thank you, Gayatri. Impactful words once again. Kavya, your take on this? Or any point that you have picked up from the audience's panel?
Well, I saw only Shishir, so if there is anything else, you can please bring it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have one that has gone unaddressed, and I thought it was important. it was more about the narrative or the stories that we tell. So, sorry, there was a question on the defense services. So, Sangeeta Saxena had asked that when women are now included in combat roles in defense services and being trained for that, how much time would it take for them to be included in other industries as well? So, I thought this is more to do with how stories are told, how, as Gayathri said, what we tell our the kids and the youngsters, the narrative. What are your
Yep.
views in this?
Exactly. So, in the same way, this is what we are trying to do in this industry as well. I mean, our atmosphere, we are way more privileged than the ones who are working in defense and army and things like that. The environment that we have and the work that we have is not as challenging. But again, there is a little bit of hesitation because of the lack of exposure. And that is what we are trying to change over here. Now that we all know the benefits, like you were saying, why are other countries encouraging more women to join in? That is because they have seen the socio-economic impact. Now we are trying to bring in the same socio-economic impact in every sector in this country, and the manufacturing sector is in fact bringing down the impact that the other sectors have created, like you mentioned earlier. So combining this in the question that Shishir asked, why do we need to create a conducive environment? This environment has to be created across sectors. There is more parity in our sector compared to the other sectors. So that is a gap we are trying to bridge. Yeah.
Thank you, Kavya. Dr. Komal?
Anand, if I can just add a
Absolutely.
quick point, if there is time,
Yes,
to
please.
that point on storytelling, and thanks, Sangeeta, for bringing that up. And this is completely a personal example, and I'm also a dancer in my personal time. And one of the stories that we were,
Wow. Just
we
hang
were,
on before you make that important point. It's an important detail. So is this Indian classical dance that we're talking about?
Yes, I am a Bharatanatyam dancer, and one of the productions that we did, that we've been focusing on is the Ramayana and the retelling of it. And when we picked up Ramayana as a topic, I thought, oh my God, and we wanted to do it for Women's Day and focus on Sita's story. And initially, when I started researching it and studying it for the purpose of interpreting it, I thought, oh my God, what a boring subject. And I mean, she's so docile, and she's such a passive character, and why Sita? But the more I read about her, and we actually have tried to reinterpret the story from her perspective, I realized that it's actually Sita who was the one who had all the courage and all the strength to go through that entire experience of being kidnapped by a man and taken to a foreign land. She was imprisoned over there, and she had to go through his amorous attentions all the time. Every day he tried to woo her to sleep with him, and she had to go through all of the mental stress and torture, and she sustained through all of that. And I ask you all, I mean, if all the focus has always been on the great journey of Lord Rama going across the seas to rescue his wife and conquering Ravana. But what if she had given in? What if she, out of mental pressure, had taken her own life? That entire journey, that victory would have been meaningless, and that entire story would have changed if it had not been for her courage and her strength. So I think that woman's role I don't think it is talked about, and it is the same with modern day stories, whether it is an Iyer pilot or a woman who's part of the Mangalyaan program. I think we have a lot to be proud of in our history.
That's such a powerful example. Thank you for that, Gayatri. The example of storytelling through our religion, through our faith, through our myths, through our great stories we tell each other. Thank you for that example. That was really, really powerful. Dr. Komal, your views?
I think all the view, everything has been covered, but still I would like to add one point over here, like for any progress also of a woman. For me, Miss, I have reached to this position, I think, because of my family support and my mother. My mother has supported me a lot to have this growth in my career. Otherwise, I think it would have been very difficult. So I think every woman is required that type of support, either from mother-in-law or from mother, and they are the main support system for a woman to grow in the life. So I think that is also one point we have to take into account while we think of everything about the woman in today's era.
I'm sure people in the policy circles and the board, members must be furiously taking notes at this point.
And
The
what
kind
I
of
observed, Mamta has actually also, she has answered questions from C. What initiative has to be there? She has wrote the question and gave the answers also. I think those all answers are right. Only in B question, lot of questions are there, but she didn't answer that. But this is the point, like what initiatives, many initiatives can be taken to have the more women in the manufacturing industries. Like as I said earlier also, because lot of awareness is to be given and the support. This is all
absolutely
must.
the mentors and the champions.
Yes,
Absolutely,
right.
absolutely. Nidhi, your views?
Yeah, I think I would, just say, Aanand, Shishir has also mentioned that every sector comes with certain environment and communication challenges. That is what we have to change, correct? That is why we are having this discussion. We have talked about the policies, government taking initiatives, programs, and all that. But I think for the corporates or the OEMs, especially in the manufacturing segment, they should come up with some plant tour initiatives. Like in Germany, BMW has these plant tours where the public can go in particular slots and have a look on the plant or the shop floors, how it runs, how the technology works. It's not the same way how it was 30 years ago. So I think such initiatives would make a lot of difference. Yeah.
Thank you, Nidhi. This session does not want to end as far as the interest level of the attendees and the host goes, but we'll have to put this to an end with the promise that we shall continue this offline and online, as it has exceeded all our expectations, including that of our attendees. I hope some important takeaways very quickly to sum it up. As Gayathri said, as the common thread was the storytelling, the championing, the mentoring, making the environment more sensitive, conducive to women, and the most of all, the confidence and the belief in oneself that women have to have, and the manufacturing sector as well, that it should be able to draw more women for its workforce. Thank you so much, ladies. I'm so glad that for once in my life, I'm able to say thank you so much, ladies, and I'm not saying gentlemen. Thank you for a riveting discussion, very, very important points, and I hope the policy makers and board members take note of them. Thank you. Have a brilliant evening ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you,
so
Aanand.
much.
Thank you
Thank you
all.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Thank
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.